Good morning, students. It is Tuesday, January 10th, and this is the preview for week 2. So we're off to a pretty good start. I've got a lot of introduction videos from most of you. I've seen most of them. Did a good job. Great. I know a lot of you don't like being on camera. Don't worry, you'll get used to it. And your kids love being on camera. So it's just the way life goes these days. Anyway, if you have not completed your intro video, that's okay. Don't sweat it. There's still time. Please still do it and still turn it in, post it so that other people can see it and make comments and whatnot. But if you're really struggling with it, please give me a call or shoot me a text or something, because we'd like to move on from this. Also, most of you have completed the knowledge survey and the course survey, and I appreciate that. If you haven't done that, please you have time to finish that up, but please get to it quickly, because this class is going to roll up on you really fast if you have a tendency to get behind. What else did we have to do last week? Lesson 1 quiz. I think almost everybody got that completed, except for a few people I haven't heard from at all. So we're on to week 2. We're doing lessons 2 and 3 this week. So you're expected to have 2 group meetings. Now, I don't know if this was made clear before, but you should be recording your group meeting. And if you've already had your group meeting and didn't record it, again, don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. And if it takes you 2 or 3 iterations to figure out how to do the recording, that's okay too. You'll figure it out. And by week 4, you guys all be experts at this. So usually takes a couple weeks for this to all settle out. I was looking at the group sign up page, and there's a lot of people on there. So here it is, Tuesday, week 2. If you have not had any contact with anybody in your group whatsoever yet, you're a little behind. You need to do what you can. And this does not just fall on one person in the group or the first person whose name is listed or anything like that. Everybody in your group should be making every effort to text, email. If you're a younger student in this class, if you've got people in your group that are younger students, they probably respond best to texts. If you've got older students in your group, they probably respond a little bit better to either email or a phone call. But anyway, please make as much effort as you can to get in touch with those people, because you should be having 2 group lessons this week. So what does a group meeting go like? Well, so all 3 or 4 of you get together in a hangout session. Somebody starts the record button. You should discuss amongst yourselves if there's any hard concepts or anything anybody didn't understand, and you can discuss it amongst yourselves and get a clarification. If there's something you disagree about or can't figure out, don't spend 45 minutes discussing it, because that won't get you anywhere. That's the time when you pick up a phone and give me a call and say, hey, we're having a little trouble here. Can you help us? And I can probably step in and give you a hand. Let's see. Then you start the group quiz. Everybody on their own PC opens the group quiz. Everybody, as you're going around the room and saying, hey, what do you think the answer to question 3 is? What do you think the answer to question 4 is? Everybody should be filling out your own group quiz. And then when you're all done, everybody should submit their own group quiz. Submitting one group quiz for the group is not how this is done. You have to each submit your own, even though you're working together and collaborating. Now, some of you may be meeting in person, which is fine. If you all live in the same area, I know we've got at least 2 or 3 groups of people that are couples that are both in the same group. If you meet in person, that's fine. You still need to record it. You're still going to have your computer open anyway, because hopefully you're filling out your group quiz while you're meeting. And so you still need to record it, and you still need to, okay, so what do you do when you've recorded it? You let it render on YouTube. Usually takes anywhere from 2 to 15 minutes for it to render. Then you need to post the link to your group meeting on the discussion board. Each lesson has a discussion board now, starting from lesson 2 up through lesson 23 or whatever. Each lesson has a discussion board where you will go and post your URL. Now, here's what your post should include. Should include what group number you are, the URL obviously, and the full names of everybody in the group. Please don't put Tom and Elizabeth and Shirley and Gretchen were there, because you're just forcing me to go look up the last names of those people, and that just makes me grumpy, and I don't like to do that. So please give me the full names of everybody there. And if your full name, if your last name that you're using happens to be different from the last name that's on your school records, I would prefer that you give me the last name on your school records, because I I typically won't remember that or not Jeff, that's a bad example, but Melissa Thomas is actually going by Melissa Standish now, and I don't know that. So anyway, please make it easy on me. What else I want to tell you? We have a TA. Her name is Kristen. She spells it differently. It's Crystan. I can't recall her last name off the top of my head right now, and I apologize for that. I should have checked that before I hooked on here. Anyway, if she haven't checked, but she will be, if she hasn't already, creating an intro video and posting it on the intro videos discussion board. She should also be posting her approximate availability and some contact information so you can get in touch with her. Her assignment is to work ahead so that she'll be working this week on the stuff you guys are going to be doing next week, so that she will be a resource. And let me emphasize here, she is not the only resource. And whether you want to make her the first resource or the second resource and make me the first or the second, I guess it's kind of up to you. I'm more than happy to help you figure out stuff that's difficult. I know a lot of people, I don't want to bother the instructor. He's a busy guy. Well, this is what I'm getting paid to do. So feel free to call me. If you feel more comfortable talking to Kristen, that's totally fine. I get it. But don't let questions go unanswered. Please ask somebody. Some of you asked about the tutoring center. I've never used it. I've had students who have used it. I don't know much about it, but the students that have used it have generally said good things about it, even if you're an online student. And I know that in the past, anyway, they've at least made it so you could actually get an appointment and meet regularly with a tutor, like once a week with a tutor. So that's another resource you can use. Okay. I kind of lost my train of thought here, but anyway, Kristen is the TA, and other things that I've asked her to do. She's going to be the one who, like, most of the due dates for quizzes and whatnot are on Saturday. So by that following Wednesday, I have a commitment as an instructor that everything's graded within 7 days. Well, grading is automatic if you turn in a quiz, but if you don't turn in a quiz, it just sits there and languishes. So I have a responsibility to go put zeros in when something's when something's past due. The way we're going to do that is Kristen's going to go in by Wednesday of the following week, and anything that was due the previous Saturday that hasn't been turned in, she will go ahead and automatically set that to a 0. Doesn't mean it can't ever be done, ever. But in order to keep up with my contractual agreement, I have to do that. And if there's a situation that you've missed something because of some illness or some other absence, and you need to make it up, usually it can be made up. You need to get in touch with me, and we'll figure something out. Due dates are kind of, in my mind, they're kind of arbitrary. But due dates are also set up so that, you're keeping good pace in the class, because this class does move very fast. All right. Kristen also, as she is able, would like to attend group meetings with you. She's not going to attend everyone. She's not going to attend everybody's. If your group meetings are held at a time she can't come, she won't come. If you're fortunate, she might be able to sit in for 15 or 20 minutes on maybe 2, possibly 3 group meetings throughout the semester. So it's not going to be a regular thing. But again, she's just another resource to make sure things are going okay, and that there's no huge challenges you're trying to overcome doing those group meetings. All right, let's move on to the material this week. A couple of topics that are kind of a challenge. By the way, I think I've mentioned this before, but all of the quizzes, all over the place, there are due dates listed for all this stuff, and they're not attached to each other. So if somebody goes and changes the due date in one place, it doesn't automatically change the due date everywhere else. So it gets a little bit confusing. So I'm just telling you right now, for all the quizzes, this does not include exams, but for all the quizzes, due dates will always be on Saturday. That doesn't mean you should put them off to Saturday. My recommendation would be that this week, for instance, if you've already had your group 2 or your lesson 2 group meeting, you should already have turned in your lesson 2 group quiz. And I would pretty shortly thereafter, I do the homework quiz for lesson 2, because if you have mistakes or make errors or have problems or are not quite understanding everything, Gives you a few days before you have to, before you can look at it for a couple of days and take your second pass at the quiz on a later date after you've had a chance to look at it. If you start working on quizzes Saturday afternoon at 7 o'clock in the evening, that's not really afternoon, I guess, you're going to be a little pressed for time to try to cram 4 quizzes and then possibly 4 reworks into that short period of time. So pace yourself, but know that stuff's always due on Saturday. Okay, so what are some of the tough concepts that are coming up this week? There's the null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. So the purpose of a statistics class like this is to teach you about hypothesis testing. Now, hypothesis testing is a very common method used to experiment. The interesting thing about hypotheses is you create a null hypothesis, which always contains the equal sign. It never doesn't contain the equal sign. It always has the equal sign in it. So let's suppose I've come up with a new medication that's better than, well, I think is better than the one that's currently being used. So in that case, I want to compare my new medication to the current medication. Maybe recovery times. Let's say it's recovery time from getting an illness. Okay, so my null hypothesis is going to contain the equal sign, which means I'm going to say, hey, the new medication is equal to the old medication. They're the same. There's no difference there. Now, is that what I'm trying to show? No, of course not. I'm trying to show that mine is better. But the way statistics works, we won't get into the nuts and bolts of this because it's way beyond the scope of the class, but the way statistics works is that you assume that things are the same, and then you try to gather evidence, aka data, to show that things are actually different. Okay, so the null hypothesis contains the equal sign always. The alternative hypothesis has one of several different flavors. They can either be not equal, or they can be greater than, or they can be less than. So depending on what sort of things you're trying to test on the alternative hypothesis, you'll want to do that. There's a big deal about quantitative and categorical variables this week. Now, I know that sounds pretty straightforward, and quite often it is, but there are times you can be fooled. So this is a common area that is a stumbling block for people. Throughout the semester, I will be handing you links to mini lessons. If you go onto my YouTube channel, they're all listed right there already. But like, for instance, this week I'll give you the link to a quantitative versus categorical variables mini lesson. It's a video about 5 or 10 minutes long. It kind of just goes through some examples of what are quantitative variables and what are categorical variables. Let's see, going to talk about the meaning of a p-value this week. A p-value, simply put, is the probability that, so when you're doing hypothesis testing, you come up with a test statistic and you calculate a value for that test statistic. Well, that test statistic is a random variable. We're going to talk more about that. If this is confusing to you or over your head, don't worry about it. But it's a random variable, meaning it can take on one of an infinite number of values, and usually it's defined by a certain range, usually by a distribution. The meaning of the p-value is that this is the probability that you would, assuming the null hypothesis is true, that you would calculate a test statistic as large or larger than the one you calculated already. So it's basically a probability. Okay, going to talk a little bit about populations versus samples. Just remember this, populations are infinitely large typically. Samples are a subset of populations. Going to talk about different types of sampling. So I think there are 5 or 6 different types of sampling talked about this week. So make sure you understand those. That will come up on quizzes. I don't know if the terminology is the same, but I want to talk about the concept of treatment groups versus control groups. Whenever you're testing something new, you want to have a control group. You want to have a group of people or objects or whatever you're testing that are getting the old treatment. Because if you just give everybody new medication, back to that example, for instance, and then you look around and say, oh, looks like everybody's getting better pretty fast. That's anecdotal. That's not evidence. That's just kind of observational. Oh, yeah, that looks like that's happening. What you need is you need to have, okay, here's the control group. We're going to give them the old medication. Here's the treatment group. We're going to give them the new medication. We'll do it all at the same time, and then we'll actually measure how long it takes these guys to get better versus how long it takes these guys to get better. And then I can compare those. So if you don't have a control group, you really don't have any basis or standard against which you're trying to compare your new treatment. Last but not least, there's a 5-number summary. Anytime you've got a set of data, there's a 5-number summary, and the 5-number summary looks like this from smallest to largest. You've got the minimum value, that's number 1. The second number in the summary is the first quartile, also known as the 25th percentile, which is the point at which 25% of the data are less than that value and 75% of the data are greater than that value. Then you've got the median, which is also the 50th percentile, which is also the second quartile. Then you've got the fourth number, which is the 75th percentile or the third quartile. That's similar to the 25th percentile, but this time you've got 75% of the data is less than that value, and 25% of the data is greater than that value. And then you've got the maximum. So again, you got minimum, first quartile, median, third quartile, maximum. That's the 5-number summary. That will come up on quizzes and tests throughout the semester, so make sure you understand that. Okay, I think that's it. Please, if you're having problems of any type and you cannot seem to get them resolved on your own, let me know. I'd like to give you a hand with that. Otherwise, or if you're having questions about how to do stuff, I know this is a lot and it's happening quickly. Don't sweat it. These first couple of weeks typically are, let's get grounded, let's figure out what the routine is. And by the time week 4 comes along, should be pretty much routine. Attendance at group meetings will not be a graded item this week. However, starting next week, starting with lesson 4, attendance at group meetings will become a graded item that will be a pass-fail type of situation. So we'll be looking for that also. Okay, I think I've covered a lot of stuff here. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, have a great week. Talk to you soon. Bye.